Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Long time no see. As you can see, I've got our sweet little girl here, and I am super excited to share with you guys her birth story. I have taken a little bit of an absence or maternity leave, if you will, from creating videos here on YouTube, definitely a lot longer than I was anticipating or planning for. So I apologize for that, but I'm really excited to be back. If you follow me on Instagram, you know that, well, one, her birth was very unexpected, which we will get to, but also I ended up, I had kind of a rough postpartum recovery because I ended up getting a DVT in my leg, which is a pretty serious blood clot. So that just kind of extended my recovery. So yeah, I took a little bit of a break here from videos, but I am back and I'm really excited to be back. But anyway, so to introduce to you, she's sleeping right now so you can't see her, but this is our sweet little girl, Hadley. She was born on February 19th, and she was actually born at 37 weeks and 6 days. So just before I turned 38 weeks, which was definitely way earlier than we were expecting. And like I said, her birth was unexpected. It was pretty wild. And it was pretty much the complete opposite of what we were planning for. So you guys know from my videos here on pregnancy and prepping for birth, we were planning to have a home birth. We were planning on having Hadley right here in our bedroom, but that was not how things went down. So basically, to kind of go back to the beginning, so in my 37th week, I was like 37 weeks, 5 days, I guess, completely out of the blue, just on a regular old day. I actually filmed 2 YouTube videos that morning. It was I felt great actually. And shortly after that, out of the blue, I skyrocketed, or my blood pressure skyrocketed. I noticed because all of a sudden I got spots in my vision. All of us were just sitting in our family room, and I actually have a blood pressure cuff. So I immediately told Matt, please go get the blood pressure cuff, and we checked it, and it was like sky high. It was very high. I don't remember the exact number, but it was like really, really high. So I immediately contacted my midwife, and she immediately was like, we're not gonna mess around with this. I want you to go to the hospital for them to check this out. So that was kind of a whirlwind. I was not expecting to go to the hospital that day. I was not expecting to go to the hospital at all. So we were a little frantic. We ran around the house. I packed a hospital bag just in the off chance that I would have to stay. I hadn't done that. I actually was gonna pack one, but I thought I had plenty of time. If you know, with my first birth, I had my daughter Hayden at a birth center. It was a water birth. It was amazing. And she was almost 40, she was just before 42 weeks. So we were not expecting to have this baby before 40 weeks for sure. Anyway, so frantically packed a hospital bag. My mom came over to watch Hayden, our first daughter, and we went off to the hospital. So when we got to the hospital, the spots in my vision had completely resolved. They were completely gone. I had a little bit of a slight headache. And when we got there, my blood pressure was totally normal. In fact, the doctor even asked, like, were you using the cuff correctly, or do you know if it's like accurate? And I was like, I'm pretty sure I was using it correctly, and I don't know, I got it from Walgreens. Like, I'm not sure if it's like, I don't know. So they were like, hey, we're just gonna keep you here for a little bit longer and monitor your blood pressure. We're gonna do some blood work. They tested my urine. Urine came back totally fine, no protein in my urine. And my blood work came back normal, except for one value, which is my creatinine. It was elevated, but everything else was normal. So with all of that, you know, we were sitting in triage, and Matt and I were thinking we're going home. I did not think we were gonna stay because my blood pressure had normalized. Everything was normal except for that one value, which like potentially could have been a fluke. And so I was just kind of thinking that we were gonna go home. So the doctors came back in, and they informed us that between my spotty vision and my slight headache and this elevated creatinine level, that they were diagnosing me with preeclampsia, and that there was really no option to leave. My only option really was to have the baby, which meant an induction, because I obviously was not in labor at this point in time. So that came as a huge shock. It was very surprising. was it, you know, when we went to triage, it was in the back of my mind, there's a chance that I could be induced. So it wasn't like completely out of left field, but just the fact that this whole pregnancy we had been planning for a home birth, and then now within minutes, those plans completely got turned on their head, and we're now having this baby right now in the hospital when I wasn't expecting for her to come for probably another few weeks. So it was very intense, and it was rather emotional. It was honestly really difficult to take in at first, especially because they told me, because of my preeclampsia, what, you know, if we choose, well, of course we did, but we want to be safe, but if we choose to go upstairs and go ahead and get induced, I would have to be on something called magnesium, I think it's magnesium sulfate, which is the drug that they give you when you are, you know, have preeclampsia to keep you from stroking out or having seizures. And they basically said, you're gonna feel like you have the flu, you might be super nauseous and throwing up. Oh, and by the way, you're gonna have to be bed bound because you're a fall risk. So that was just, I mean, that completely broke my spirit, because I'm thinking like, okay, gonna be induced, could be worse. Like, you know, I've been through birth before, not with drugs, not with Pitocin or anything like that, but I can handle this. It was still really important to me, or at least it was still a priority for me to have a birth that was free of, like basically I wanted to opt out of the epidural. Because I had my first daughter completely naturally, I knew that I could do it, and I was just kind of like, that's where my head was at. And then when they told me I had to be bed bound and I was gonna feel really sick, I just went from feeling like empowered, like I got this, to, oh my God, I'm gonna have to not only go through labor, but feel like I have the flu and be throwing up the whole time. Like, that just sounds like a really terrible experience that I'm not excited for. So that was really kind of tough to take in, but obviously everything considered, talking to my midwife, talking to Matt, talking to my mom, you know, we all felt that this was absolutely the right move, and that this was just kind of, even though it was not at all what we wanted, it was just kind of what had to happen.
So, it's still February 18th, 2021. Made a mistake earlier, said it was 2020.
It's been a whole year.
It has been a whole year. We have moved to the labor and delivery.
Things escalated. So basically, they recommended we go ahead and do an induction, which was not at all our plan. Had a good cry or 5 about it. But you
Staying
know,
positive.
Yeah, it is what it is.
As long as baby's healthy, mommy's healthy.
Yeah.
That's all that matters.
Yeah.
In the end.
So it's like a major change of plans, and it's a lot to process. But we're gonna meet our baby.
Can't wait.
And we're excited for that. So anyway, before we got everything started, I went into the bathroom to kind of like wash my makeup off and just, you know, get ready for this long night ahead of us. It was around, I think like 7 or 8 o'clock at this point at night. And when I was in the bathroom, I just totally broke down, and I let myself feel all the feels, feel all of the sadness, feel all of the shock, feel like whatever it was that I was feeling. I was just so, I just had to let it out, and I knew that my body was not going to let this baby go until I like felt all of these things. And I was sad for a lot of different reasons. I was sad, you know, to have to let go of the idea of having this home birth. I was sad that I was, you know, in this crazy predicament when, like, you know, just a few hours before it was a totally normal day. It was just very surprising. I was sad because I was sad. That was, you know, pregnancy hormones for you. I didn't want this to be a sad experience. This is, you know, bound to be one of like the best days of our life, and it's such an exciting thing bringing a baby into the world, and I didn't want this to be, I didn't want to be sad. I wanted to be happy, and I wanted to be excited. But most of all, what was making me so upset, when we left to go to the hospital, like I said, it was frantic, we were kind of hurried, and when we left, I think our daughter Hayden was really like kind of catching that vibe. She was also getting a little like, what is going on? Everyone's like running around, you know, and she was feeling like not herself, and she was kind of like emotional. So when we left for the hospital, we just kind of like snuck out, and Matt did say goodbye to Hayden, but I did not, like, I didn't really say goodbye to her. We just kind of left because we didn't want her to be upset, and she was content with my mom, and that completely devastated me. That, you know, that was like my moment with my first baby, the last time she would be my only baby, and I didn't I didn't get that moment. I didn't get to squeeze her and acknowledge it. And I was so like distraught over that. And I was so sad that I didn't have that moment. I was sad for her. I was sad for me. So that was what really was, that was what was killing me, honestly. But I went in the bathroom and I just cried and I let it all out and I felt so much better. And after that moment of just really allowing myself to just be super emotional. And if you know me, I'm like not a crier, so that's like hard for me to do. But after that, I felt so much better and I like had my game face on and I was like, okay, I'm ready to take on labor, you know. It's just such like a long, intense journey in itself. So then it was time to actually get the induction started. So I was started on the magnesium. I was started also on a Foley bulb with Cytotec, which is something that they just like put up. It's like a little balloon they blow up to pull down on your cervix to kind of act as like the baby's head pressing on there. The Cytotec helps to soften your cervix as well. So that was the first thing that we did, and I'm happy to report that the magnesium was actually not nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be in my personal experience.
All right, so it's February 18th still. It is 9:30 p.m. and Becca is being a champion. She is gonna crush it.
This is so flattering.
She, I don't know where we left off, but we got a Foley bulb around like 7:30.
Yeah.
And before that, they said she was 2.5 centimeters dilated.
Which was good news. I was afraid they were gonna tell me my cervix was slammed shut.
And yeah. And the Foley bulb's in there to get her to like 3.5 centimeters dilated.
And it sounds like it's already loosened up, so started on magnesium drip, which is interesting. I just feel really, they said I was gonna feel flu-like. I don't feel flu-like, at least not yet. I just feel really relaxed. It's actually not bad. Maybe it'll get worse, but.
And Cytotec.
Oh yeah, they put Cytotec in as well, which is to help like ripen my cervix, soften it up, which they said could start contractions. I haven't felt any yet, so we'll see. So
I pretty much labored through the night. Contractions, honestly, I mean, I was having contractions, but they literally they felt like nothing until I was about 5 centimeters along, which is around the time that they broke my water, and then things started to pick up. So I was just taking the contractions as they came. I was handling them super well. I was kind of in my hypnobaby zone, which I was, you know, planning to do with the home birth. And a couple of things that were really helpful to me during this was every time a contraction would come on, in my mind I would say to myself like, this feels good. This feels really good. Which obviously it doesn't, but it almost is a way to like trick my mind into staying relaxed. And another thing I kept reminding myself was, this is my power. You know, this isn't happening to me. My body is doing this for me. And I am ultimately in control of this power. This power comes from me, which is another way just to kind of frame your mind to help you feel calm and in control and not feel panicky, like something, you know, this is happening to you and you can't do anything about it. So those were a couple things that really helped me. And as we went along, I was handling everything fine. I was just laying, I was able to lay down during this labor, which was amazing because with Hayden, I literally had to be on my feet. And that was one of my big fears with this labor because I was worried that, you know, I had to stand up with her to handle the contractions. And I literally am gonna be bed bound, so that's not like literally not an option. But luckily it was fine. I was very comfortable laying down. I was just laying, I would flip back and forth on my sides. Sometimes I was on my back, just kind of like relaxed and just letting the waves crash over me.
All right, it is now February 19th, 2021. It's 1 a.m. and Miss Rebecca still being a champion, and she is now 4.5 centimeters dilated. The Foley bulb came out.
Yes, I was really happy about that. That thing is uncomfortable. I mean, it wasn't that bad, but I was very happy to see that thing go.
I feel like your comfort level really
yeah, because you couldn't really like sitting up was really uncomfortable. You're like sitting on it and then just the constant, like, it's pulling on your cervix, so it's just uncomfortable, but not painful. But
Right.
just
And you're 60 minus 4.
60% effaced, yeah.
Um,
Still a -4, so that's still got a long way to go.
so we were able to start Pitocin.
Like shaky from the hormones.
Okay.
So we started Pitocin
Just
a
about
few
10 minutes ago.
Yeah, so this should get interesting. I've obviously never experienced this before. And you always hear that Pitocin contractions are more intense. So we'll kind of see, ooh, really shaky, how that goes. Also had a total of 4 blood draws since entering this hospital. I just had the 4th one done because they just keep ordering labs.
Have they been doing a good job at least?
Yeah.
So around, I would say 7 a.m. is when things started to pick up intensity-wise. There was a shift change, so I know that it was 7 a.m. And at that point I was still in control, but I was like moaning through my contractions. I was getting a lot more vocal, and things were really, the intensity was picking up big time. Now around this time, 7 a.m., I started to feel like I was definitely in transition because, you know, things were getting more intense. During the contractions, I was actually feeling a little bit nauseous, and I was also feeling like I was physically feeling her push down. Like I was feeling her head push down, not like a pushing contraction, but I could feel the pressure of her head pushing down when, you know, my uterus was squeezing during the contraction. And also during the contractions, even though I was still like in control, I was fully relaxed, breathing through it and all of that. In my mind, I started to get a little panicky. Like, I don't know how much longer I can do this. This is getting really hard. Like, oh, like, you know, just a little panicky, which are all classic signs of being in transition. Well, maybe not the pushing down, because I didn't experience that with Hayden, but everything else. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm in transition. I probably have like 20 more minutes or so of this, and then I'm probably gonna be pushing. So that was what I kept telling myself. So I was, you know, trying to stay in my logical brain. And about 25 minutes later, the contractions continued to get more intense. I was just kind of like, when am I gonna start feeling pushy? Like, this should probably be over by now. So I actually, at that point, voiced to my nurse, I said, who was an angel, I said, I think I'm in transition. And she was like, oh, great, okay, well, like, let me check you. So in the hospital, they check you, at least in my birth, they checked me a lot, like many times. With Hayden, I was checked once, right when I got to the birth center, and I was like 3 centimeters. I was never checked again. So that was kind of like a new thing, and I wish, in retrospect, she had not checked me, and she would have just let me, like, go girl, all right, you're in transition, cool. Like, that's what they did at the birth center. But obviously, you know, hospital, it's just a little bit of a different vibe. So she immediately was like, cool, let me check you. And I am like convinced I'm in transition, so I'm like, all right, whatever, like, go for it. I'm probably like 7-8 centimeters. So she checked me, and she's like, okay, well, you're at a 5, and about an hour and a half before that I was checked and I was at a 5. So I am thinking now in my head, that's when things, mentally, that's when things turned, because I started to really then panic, because I'm still at a 5, like I thought I was in transition. And so then I'm starting to think, okay, it's the Pitocin, that's why these contractions are so much harder. I haven't even gotten to transition yet. And then I started to like psych myself out. So at that point, because I was psyching myself out mentally, the contractions were way harder. And and I also think that it had to do with potentially the Pitocin as well. So at that point, it was right around that time when she checked me that the intensity of the contractions really picked up, and they became not only just intense, which I could handle, but they actually became really painful. And that was not what I experienced with my first birth. I never described the contractions as painful, which probably sounds crazy, but they were incredibly intense. But it didn't feel like an assault, like I was being hurt by these contractions. And I never once felt like I can't do this, you know? It was just really hard. But with these, so basically it was, you know, it was a contraction, a normal contraction that I would feel like in the front lower abdomen. You just feel like that intense, it's just like a pulling sensation. So that was what I was feeling the whole time. But then at this point, it started to be coupled with like crippling back pain. it felt like, you know, I was being, like my bones were being crushed, or I was being like pulled apart. And I've heard women describe contractions that way before, and I was like, that was never my experience with my first. But this was different. This felt like agony. This felt like I was being assaulted. And I hate to even say that because I don't want to freak any women out, but it also was just, that was what I felt. So at that point, these contractions start happening to me, and I just found out that I'm still at a 5. I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm tapping out. I will gladly take the epidural because clearly I still have a little ways to go. And at this point I'm in agony. Like, no, I want this to be peaceful. I want this to be joyful. So I'll go ahead and take that epidural. So, you know, it took probably 15 minutes for the anesthesiologist to actually get there. And by the time he got there, I was not handling my contractions well at all. I was, you know, very panicky when they would come on. I was kind of yelling. I was not in control. I had completely lost control. And I was just like, please, like somebody take this pain from me. It's just too much. Now I do think it definitely had to do with the fact that they were Pitocin contractions, because Pitocin contractions are stronger than the contractions your body would naturally create. But also there was a few key differences with this birth. So with Hayden, I was in a tub during transition. I was in the hot water. I was floating, all of my muscles were relaxed. Also, my water had not broken with Hayden until I was already pushing, and it was probably about 10 minutes before she came out. My water broke while we were obviously in the tub. So with this baby, I had Pitocin. I was not in a tub, I was on a bed, and my water had already been broken. So when your water is broken, there's no longer that like cushion the bag of waters provides between your cervix and the baby's like head, like their skull pressing down. So that alone can make contractions more intense. So I don't know if it was just the Pitocin. I think it was probably like a mix of all 3 of those things, why it was so much more difficult than my first, but it was definitely a whole different ball game. Anyway, so the anesthesiologist comes in. So this is where, you know, things really got wild. So it was wild that we were here in the first place. It was wild that we had to get induced. That was so unexpected. And we were joking that this baby right here, my sweet little sleeping angel, is probably gonna be our firecracker child, because, you know, I wanted to have a home birth, and she was like, no, we're not gonna do that. We're gonna go ahead and get induced. And then I, you know, didn't want to have, or I wanted, at this point, I wanted to have an epidural, and she was like, no, we're not gonna do that either. So I'll explain. So I'm literally hunched over on the bed. I'm holding onto Matt's hands. He's behind me. He puts the catheter in. And as he's like doing this, she literally starts crowning. You guys, I am not kidding you. So I start yelling, I'm sitting on her head. I'm sitting on her head. And everybody just kind of like froze and didn't know what to do. And I was like, I need to get on my back. Like she's coming out right now. Like she's coming out. And everybody was just kind of like looking at me. And so I literally like screamed. I was like, ah, because like nobody was helping me. I was like, I need to get on my back. Like get out of here. Like I know you have like a needle or something, but like you need to move. So all of a sudden, it happened so fast. All of these doctors rush in like right after I let out that scream. And everybody starts like fussing, and they immediately, like, the anesthesiologist is like, ugh, and he just leaves. And they like help me, you know, get back on the bed, and I lay on my back, and I'm just like, what? I was like, what's happening? I was like, did I get the epidural? Did I not get the epidural? Like, what's happening? I just need to know if I'm gonna feel something right now. And they were like, oh no, honey, like the baby's coming. There wasn't time. You know, you did not get it. So I was like, okay, that's fine. I just needed to know. So then the next contraction, I start feeling her come down, and she literally, one push, she came right out. She was just ready to be out of my body. She did not want to be in there a second longer. So, I mean, she came out very quickly, and all of a sudden she was here. She was here, she was on my chest. It was so surreal, and she cried right away, and it was just the craziest moment. And just like with Hayden, of course, Matt is like, you know, crying. This is like so sweet, oh my gosh. And I just was like, which I literally did this, I did this exact same thing with Hayden. I was just like in shock, like what, there's like literally a baby on my chest, like what just happened? So it's just funny that it was that way again. No tears by me, just pure shock. So yeah, that was her entrance into the world. It was rather crazy. The anesthesiologist did eventually come back in, because I did have a catheter placed in my back. I just never actually got like the epidural drugs. So he had to come back to remove it, and you know, I was like, oh, sorry about that. That was a little crazy. And he was like, yeah, you know, that's very rare, but it does happen. So apparently she was just ready to come. She did not want me, she just wanted to do things her own way. She did not want to be born at home. She didn't want me to have an epidural even when I decided I did want it. So it's just kind of funny.
It's now February 20th. Miss Hadley Eileen has been alive for 24 hours now, and she is a beautiful young lady. She came a lot sooner than we expected. I guess not after we heard 2 days ago that she was gonna be induced, but nevertheless, due date of March 6th, but born on February 19th. And she is beautiful. And Daddy is resting beautifully. Just kidding. Mommy has done a great job over the last 48 hours. Lots of emotions, lots of...
It's a wild ride.
Wild ride and crazy labor, but she crushed it. And brought this beautiful girl into the world.
So that is Miss Hadley's birth story. Definitely wild and unexpected and a little bit crazy, but honestly, even though it was literally the opposite of what we had planned for and hoped for, it was still very beautiful, and it was still very peaceful, except for like that last 20 minutes when I went from like 5 centimeters to 10 centimeters and she was born. That was a little nuts, but outside of that, it was truly, it was peaceful, it was joyful, a lot of ups and downs, but it ended up being a beautiful experience. And while it could have been traumatic, you know, to go through that, it really wasn't. Like, we had a good experience. The induction went quickly. I think the whole thing said and done from start to finish was like 13 hours when they told me it was gonna be like at least 24. So that was like, ooh. But she was just ready to come out. Everything went smoothly, you know, nothing went haywire with the induction, which I was so grateful for. And yeah, and you know, it doesn't always work out how you plan. People always say that birth is unpredictable, and I am a testament of that for sure, because this was not what we planned, but it ended up being just fine. And she just wanted to make her own entrance into the world. Also, if you guys have not seen it, or I guess I should say heard it, Matt and I have a whole podcast episode where we chat about her birth story. We chat for like over an hour. There's a lot more details there. You get to hear Matt's whole point of view. He took detailed notes of everything that actually happened in the induction and what times and what drugs and everything that they, you know, used on my body. If you want just kind of like more the nitty-gritty of the experience, you guys can check that out. Our podcast is called The Bristow's Made a Baby. We podcasted through this whole pregnancy and also through Hayden's whole pregnancy as well. So if you guys want to go binge that, if you haven't heard it, and you love hearing about pregnancy and birth and all that kind of stuff, you should definitely go check it out. But that is all I have for this video. I'm so excited to introduce you to our sweet little Hadley girl. And I'm really excited to get back to making videos for you guys. So let me know down in the comments if you have any requests, because I'm just really excited to get going, and I would love to make videos that you guys want to see. So let me know what kind of videos you would like, and I will do my best to make that happen for you. Thank you guys again so much for watching. I'm gonna go feed this little one, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.